Hi everyone and welcome to another pick a card reading. This special pick a card reading is dedicated for tomorrow's super full moon taking place in the sign of Scorpio, a celestial event that is really special, and it can be a very important moment from a karmic perspective, from a psychological perspective, and even regarding our relationships and finances, because all full moons have so much to do with endings, closures, completions, shedding light on something, revelations, sometimes manifestations, because it simply represents the culmination of the lunar cycle. Because the moon pulls on water, it has a massive gravitational effect on our planet, on water, even, the water inside our bodies, and most importantly, on the psyche. So each and every full moon has this kind of unique power where it just reveals stuff, it provokes energies and karmic patterns to complete themselves. Very many endings can take place in life because when we know the truth, when we see things clearly, well, then that gives us an advantage to make choices. But this is every full moon. It doesn't matter where it takes place in. And that's why this one in the sign of Scorpio is very special and powerful for a number of different reasons. Well, mostly because the sign of Scorpio rules secrets, it rules the occult, it rules magic, it rules repressed feelings, emotions, so it has so much to do with the subconscious and the psyche, our memories, our, past emotions, maybe repressed emotions, but at the same time, when a luminary body, like the moon in our case, is in this part of the sky, it always reveals some very important secrets or information which was sometimes deliberately, other times out of ignorance, hidden from our sight. But at the same time, if all of this wasn't enough, Scorpio is also a highly magical sign. If we add to this the energy of the moon, which is also really magical, spiritual, psychological, well, then that makes it even more powerful. And if all of this wasn't enough, Neptune, the planet of spirituality, the source, unconditional love, divine guidance, dreams, fantasies, our superior intelligence, our divine self, the divine spark inside of us, all of this has to do with the symbolism of Neptune. Now, Neptune forms a celestial conversation of supreme harmony with the moon in Scorpio from his home sign of Pisces, making it even stronger. So, this is definitely going to be either magical, psychological, is definitely going to reveal things for us. May it have to do with our personal lives, one specific area of life, or may it have to do with something external reality, for example, our relations, our friends, our contracts, our work relations, the resources we share with others, maybe our finances and debt, because the Scorpio Taurus axis has so much to do with worth, value, money, even self worth. So this is going to be really interesting. And if all of this wasn't enough, then we also have the moon being sextiled by Pluto, the governor, the ruler of Scorpio, the planet of transformation, alchemy, secrets, magic, the occult, psychoanalysis. It is the big astrological symbol of transformation, regeneration, endings, losses, fated events. So, this is going to be extremely powerful, especially from a spiritual, magical, metaphysical, supernatural perspective, and things can be revealed in our lives as if by magic, regardless of how well hidden, guarded that secret is. But anyway, if you'd like to read more about this upcoming full moon in Scorpio, we have a special video and article which are going to be linked in the description below so you can read about it if you'd like. So let's get back to our reading. So because of this full moon is going to be so very magical and revelatory, well, this pick a card reading attempts to take a look at how could this celestial event influence your life. So all you need to do is take a look at the three piles of cards for a couple of seconds, then choose one which appeals to your intuitive senses the most, and then just stay tuned for the interpretation. Now, before I get to the interpretation, I would just like to say a couple of words of advice about this full moon, because it's so very, very magical. It is so powerful. It is the energy of deep soul level, core level transformation. It is really advised to do any spiritual practice, or just meditating, just praying, or just staying with yourself in sacred solitude and just contemplating, reflecting, allowing your mind and thoughts and your emotions to go wherever they wish, because this is such a wonderful opportunity to manifest something, to purge yourself, to find your inner truth, to find clarity. In other words, this magical full moon is going to be so useful and helpful for so very many different things. This is like a big window of opportunity when you can connect straight to the divine mind, to the divine intelligence, the soul of the divine, so to speak. So I highly advise anyone who listens to this to take maybe at least just half an hour on the 7th tomorrow and just work with the energies of the full moon, however you are guided, however you usually practice spirituality, or even if you don't, just do whatever feels right. Just down with yourself and meditate for a couple of minutes. But of course, meditation is so different for different people. So it's not everyone who's gonna stay in silence and in that yoga position. Some people can meditate while showering, some people while cleaning, vacuuming, hoovering the house, others taking long walks in nature. It doesn't matter how you do it, as long as you just dedicate a moment your day to connect with the divine or spirit or your higher self, or just, spend a little bit of time with yourself. Now let's begin the interpretations. The first pile. Your cards are the bindweed, which is basically the devil in classic tarot, the Four of Cups reversed, and the Nine of Wands reversed. Now, first of all, the bindweed, the devil, tells us you had like really serious, and for some people even severe, psychological blockages in your life, which kind of kept you totally in chains, totally bound down from every single perspective in the more distant past. But after you discovered that that's where the problem lies, you started to do a lot of inner work. Maybe some of you even went to a specialist, others started to read specific books, articles, search on the internet for, advice, methodology. In other words, you kind of did your own research, and a lot of things made so much sense. But also, the moment when you decided to do this research investigation, it was like an inner wake-up call where all of a sudden it just clicked in your head that all the failures, the stagnation, the procrastination, the blockages, the fact that nothing was working in your life whatsoever had to do with something either psychological, subconscious, or karmic, or something which is outside of the usual everyday sphere. Because the thing is, you didn't deserve your life to be like that, because you were a person who had so much imagination, who had so much goodwill, creativity, future plans and dreams. You were like a reservoir of inspiration. You had so much energy inside of you to just live life, to enjoy life. And also emotionally, you were a very balanced person, even if you might not think of it this way, because the balance manifested in your life that you were always understanding, you were always compassionate, you were never aggressive, you never lashed out, you always tried your very, very best to understand people in your life and to treat them with as much respect and fairness and correctness as you possibly could. But this is exactly where the universe intervened in your life, because the universe saw your potential. The universe saw who you actually were. The way the universe saw you is how it created you, what potential and configuration and archetype it bestowed upon you at the moment of your birth, and you should have done so many things in your life with it. But because you had all the wrong people in your life, where your sense of normality was so very, very distorted, the life that you had and the person who you were, whatever you embodied, just simply wasn't you. So all of that had to be terminated, all of that had to be purged out by you, because, for example, all those people in your life were not serving your highest good. They were not actually part of your normality because they were totally different. But the reason why they were in your life, why you were connected, was because if you didn't embody the person who you were created to be, well, then how can your life be as ideal as it was designed by the universe, if you know what I mean? Of course, it wasn't the fault of those people who you had in your life, because you attracted them. The major problem goes back way, way, way back in your distant past, either childhood or in your very, very young years, because either you had a not very supportive parent, maybe some childhood traumas, education, problems at school, or you had the worst possible kind of friends in your life when you were younger, and they kind of projected their own fears, their own not very healthy life philosophies and life views on you, and you basically absorbed it and made it your own, and that's how your story just twisted and it became a life, it turned into a life which wasn't you whatsoever. Why? Well, because your basic archetype, who you are at the very core of your being, is a person with great power, great initiative. You are so very creative. You're a natural problem solver. Your mind can go wherever it wants to because you're like that genius archetype. So a genius archetype needs a can-do attitude, where everything is can-do, we can achieve it, nothing is impossible. If we put some work and effort into it, we can accomplish anything. This is the kind of person who you are at the deep core of your soul, but because of that education or the parent or whatever happened in your past, all of this twisted into the exact opposite, where you always try to be, aggressively realistic, where optimism turned into pessimism, because that's how society works. You always have to be down to earth, you always have to analyze your options extremely rationally, mathematically. So it took away your faith, it took away your spirituality. Even if you were a spiritual person and lived a spiritual life, it didn't really do any good because you were not embodying what you believed. You weren't embodying your basic archetype, who has a lot of faith, who has a lot of courage, power, initiative, who can just do anything. And basically you turned into the total opposite, to that person who didn't believe in themselves, who compared their situation to others, who always checked if outside reality, if maybe society, the world of matter, allows your plan to flourish. But most of the times you found, well, no, because I don't meet the criteria, I'm not good enough, I'm not learned enough, I'm not experienced enough, I'm not brave enough. All those excuses, and they started slowly turning your life into something which just wasn't you. And this is exactly where the Four of Cups reversed comes in, because you started to dig deep to the very root and core of the problem. You found where the blind weed lies, you found its roots, and you tried everything in your power to just rip it out, to just kill the bindweed, to free yourself from your own misaligned beliefs and from all the projection that other people, like projected on you. And immediately as you started this inner work, you started, figuring stuff out, you started finding yourself, you had an authentic image of who you actually are, who you were created to be. Just that embodying that person was very, very difficult, and it's still a big work in progress even in the present moment. And that's exactly why the power of this full moon is going to reveal to you exactly where the root of the bindweed is in your subconscious, and you're definitely, it's gonna give you that Pluto is going to give you the power to rip it out, to eliminate it, and embody who you truly are. This is where your can-do attitude, this is where your inner power, resourcefulness, the genius that you are, is making a comeback. It's almost like allowing your old self to properly die, your old ego to just fade to dust, and from that dust, the phoenix, your true self, is going to arise. And the moment when that happens, things in your life are going to change so, so, so profoundly. Because once that Nine of Wands is reversed, as in back into normal position, where you own your power, you own your resourcefulness, the genius of your mind and intellect just does its job, well then physical reality is going to be totally different for you. This is where your success is just gonna come one after another. It's almost like life being a big Lego, a chaotic box of Legos, where you just start building, where you just start designing this and that, and it all comes together before your very eyes. And basically the magic of this full moon, the power of that very potent Scorpio energy, that plutonic energy basically, is going to catapult you into embodying your true self. And then you are gonna start having success, you're gonna start building the life that you deserve to experience, the kind of life which suits you like a glove, the kind of life which you always should have had. Now let's get on to the second pile, and your cards are the Awakening, which is Judgment in Classic Tarot, the Nine of Coins, and the Knight of Coins. Now for you guys, the Awakening, the Judgment basically, represents the more recent past. It could be 2018, 2019, or for some people, even going back much further than that, when basically you just figured a very, very powerful and profound truth out, that basically reality depends so much on your perception. That was the moment of your spiritual awakening, when basically your consciousness just started to expand and you started to explore life in a totally different manner than you had before. And of course, that moment of awakening, that moment when you just realize that reality is what you make of it, and it also depends very much on your attitude, your psychological configuration, well, that's when big things started to change in your life. But those changes were mostly psychological inner changes, where you terminated certain relationships which were no longer authentic, where you healed wounds and had a lot of karmic closures. You broke like certain type of soul contracts which you had. Like other relationships were not terminated, but rather they were healed, they were regenerated, they were returned to what they always should have been, because both you and that other person maybe had a totally different understanding and soul level maturity. But most importantly, you just saw yourself in a totally different light, where you just saw your old psychological patterns, all the mistakes and bad choices that you made. You saw where your weaknesses are, but also where your greatest virtues are. And slowly but surely, over the course of these years and until the present moment, it just totally transformed who you were. Because you have always been a very powerful, a very intelligent, resourceful person, but you weren't always aligned with your true beliefs. You weren't always aligned with your virtues. There were very many moments in your life when you just couldn't accept being seen as vulnerable by another person. You had moments when you feared closeness, when you feared friendships, when you feared actually good things happening to you because you didn't have a very healthy sense of self-worth. Maybe you were too caught up in your philosophies. Maybe you were too caught up in your own way of rationalizing life, existence, destiny, how how the universe works basically. May it have to do from a spiritual perspective or just simple philosophies when you just ask yourself big existential questions and try to find the answer. You were so very caught up in all the small details, and of course they didn't allow you to have a valid reflection of who you are and your self-worth. But all of this is a thing of the past because you healed everything. You did a lot of inner work and it paid off handsomely. And right now, you're someone who is infinitely loving, who is infinitely kind, who is absolutely proud of who you are, who has absolutely no regrets. And because you kind of realize that reality is what you make of it, you are trying your very best in the present moment to live a life full of gratitude where you're actually thankful, not not necessarily just for the universe, for everything and everyone including yourself, for everything that you have in your life, for being alive, for having the opportunity to perceive existence the way you perceive it in a very multidimensional and unique perspective. And you know what a big gift all of that is, because other people are so ignorant and blind and blocked that for them reality is maybe like a savage jungle just because they cannot see the beauty in it. But you can, and that makes you so very different. And even though you came such a long way with your healing journey, with your awakening, there is still a very small blockage, an obstacle in your path, which you simply cannot identify what it is, but you know that something is still holding you back, even though you healed, even though you are extremely and infinitely proud of who you are. You found self-love, you actually trust yourself, you empower yourself. You see great things in your future because you know just how much you deserve it, and you know that you're an infinitely beautiful, very artistic, a very pure soul. So absolutely you deserve the best in life. But that little obstacle, which kind of is blocking your path in the present moment, is nothing more than divine timing, because you needed to crystallize your inner truth, and the next step is naturally physical reality having to manifest, having to show, having to reconfigure itself in order to show your inner truth. So this is exactly what the light of the full moon is going to reveal in your life, is going to tell you that the karmic forces and everything that you have worked for in the past so very hard is there, and it is coming, it is entering your life, but it's not instant. It is going to take place over the course of the next 9 months, and this is exactly why the Nine of Coins is so very important, because it represents your financial independence. Because this is what you actually desire in your life. This is what you need so very desperately in your life, to live your truth, to live your new life, or better said, the life which you have worked for. Now, for some people, this Nine of Coins can take so very many different forms of expression. For example, some people just need a better source of income so that they can actually be financially independent and not rely on anyone, not make any compromises. For others, it may have to do with a shared accommodation where they just need their alone time, so they need their sacred space. They need a space which they won't share with absolutely anyone, so they can do whatever they want at any given moment of the day or night. While for others still, it has much to do with their creativity, where they just need that independence, that freedom to just experiment with their art or whatever they feel guided to, or whatever kind of inspiration they receive. But something that everyone has in common, yes, this is coin energy, this is about material freedom and independence, but for you guys, it's not the money which matters, but more like the sensation, the truth of being free, of being independent, because that is when you're in your comfort zone, so to speak. That is when you're at your very, very best. Since you're already living a life of gratitude, well, imagine the happiness that you're gonna feel, because you are a kind of person who naturally is very light-hearted, and when you're free in your life, when you just can do whatever you desire, well, then nothing that life can throw at you, no pain, no obstacle, no anything can bind you down, because just like a bullet passes through air without any friction, well, any obstacle or sadness or any bad event that life might throw at you just passes through you, because you're that okay with yourself, you're that happy in your life of freedom, and also you have your inner world and your imagination and fantasy to tap into when external reality is rather unkind, because that's part of life. There is always ups and downs in life, but the downs can simply not touch you because you're that okay with yourself, and for that all you need is freedom. So the Knight of Coins is a big sign that it's coming, it is entering your life. Physical reality is going to definitely reflect your inner state over the next 9 months of your life. So it's really, really good news, because this very magical full moon is going to be like the starting flag being waved. You know that another karmic chapter is starting in your life. Now let's get on to pile number 3. Your cards are the Death, Strength Reversed, and Ace of Cups. Now the very first card, the Death, speaks about the past, and this isn't like a very distant past. This is usually like past 4 years or something like that, where you had a massive, massive loss. Now this loss was different for different people, but one thing is in common, that it just devastated, it basically destroyed your life and your old sense of normality. So for some people, this death means a lot of material losses, but this is really, really big events. For example, like losing all your possessions, losing your house, losing your job, losing your livelihood. For some people, it's not directly material, but it's rather their health. They suffered either from a big illness or had an accident which affected their health, or some kind of health related problem was triggered, and the material losses came after, related to that. While for others it's not that much about material losses, but either losing someone they love dearly, as in passing away, or a divorce, or the termination of a very powerful soul level alliance, like a soulmate type of relationship. For others still, it might not be something really specific. It was just like a psychological breakdown, a total breakdown, where they entered into the dark nights of the soul with depression, severe depression, suicidal thoughts, anxiety, the worst expression of psychological turmoil. But anyway, for everyone in common, whatever happened, regardless of what nature these losses were, well, it destroyed your life totally. And at the time when it happened, it was really, really bad. It was really doom and gloom. You thought that it was gonna be over, definitely. You knew that, well, there was no possible way you could recover from it. You actually thought that this was it, this was the end. But of course, then you realized that this was actually a karmic moment, triggered and orchestrated by the universe to set you free. To set you free from an old life, to set you free from old goals, from old desires, from an old life you which just wasn't actually serving your highest good, because it stopped you from excelling, it stopped you from being who you are, it stopped you from living the life which you incarnated here to experience. Maybe for some people it just stopped your soul path totally, because that kind of life, even though it was, it was as it was, but it didn't allow you to perform your roles, even if it was okay materially, even if you had a pretty comfortable life, it just wasn't suitable karmically for who you are, either because it stopped you from doing your soul mission, from experiencing the kind of karmic events that you need to experience for which you actually incarnated here. So it was a big must. It had to be done from the universe's perspective. The losses, the tower moment, basically, the death of the old self and the old life just had to enter your reality because it was blocking you. And many times it wasn't even your fault, it wasn't anyone's fault, it was just the way it was. Sometimes the puzzle pieces fall together in a very chaotic manner, and when they crystallize and when they become stable, well, then you have to demolish it to rebuild the big puzzle. But what's most important is that all of this is a thing of the past. You already accepted it. You can already see the reason why it happened. You no longer see it as doom and gloom, but rather you're actually thankful for it. You see it as a saving grace where it just released you from a life which actually didn't serve your happiness, from a life which was on a soul level meaningless to you. So yes, you can actually appreciate that the universe intervened in your favor, and you can also appreciate all the lessons and wisdom and discovering who you actually are, which was triggered by those negative karmic moments, the losses, the hurt, the attempts to recover, because the healing journey was just as, painful. It was just as doom and gloom as the losses itself. So the healing journey and the recovery wasn't easy or beautiful or magical or anything. Yes, the divine was at your side 24/7. Yes, very important synchronicities and even miraculous moments did happen, and they did take place in your life. They did help you many times in the very last second, but the overall picture is still extremely hard. It was extremely difficult. It was extremely painful. But you're over it. You regenerated. You aligned everything that you had to. And right now, you are only waiting for your life, your reality, your destiny, your new karmic path to enter reality and just release you. Let you live the life which has to take the place of your old life. So basically what I'm telling you here is, yes, you had your losses, but those losses emptied your life and your heart and your mind and your soul, and now you're empty and you're waiting to refill that emptiness, to, refill the void, to invite in your life, in your sphere, everything that has to take the place of what you lost. But it's not happening yet, and you don't know why. And this is exactly why the magic and light of the full moon is going to reveal to you the very, very last step of your healing and recovery, which is more psychological than anything, because it has so much to do with desires. Because, everything that you lost has to be regained, and it has to be born, first of all, in your mind and your heart. So the desire has to be what is born first of all, the primordial fire, the primordial soup, so to speak. You have to know what you want to attract in your life. You have to know what resonates with you. You have to align with your passion, because that passion is going to be your new reality. But some of your passions are conditioned by your mental image, by unhealthy expectations. Maybe you desire certain things way too strongly, way too obsessively. So you need to eliminate your control, the grip you have on your passions, desires, your new life basically, and you also have to release the mental image, because that is already an expectation which is conditioning the universe from, delivering the very best possible version of your desires to you and to enter into your life. So, in other words, this is the very last step that you need to complete, where you just surrender all of your trust to the universe, to the divine intelligence, and not insist that it has to take the specific, image that is in your mind. You have to basically accept that it might not always manifest in a way you desire specifically, with your precise 100% specifications, that it has to be this and that. It has to be a specific color, for example, or it has to come into your life at that specific date or moment, or maybe it can also represent your impatience, where you know that you did everything, you healed everything, but then you ask yourself kind of obsessively, but well, then why isn't it here in my life already? Why am I not living my future? Why is this and that what the universe kind of indirectly promised to me, why isn't it happening? So it's this that you have to eliminate, because as soon as you do this very, very last inner work, well, then very, very big things are entering your life. At one point in the past, when your life was in total ruins, you just said to yourself that, well, it takes a big miracle for me to make it, for me to live the life I desire to live. And guess what? That is exactly what this full moon is going to do. It's going to push you towards, having that miracle. It is going to guide you, steer you in every possible way, shape, or form, in order to live that miraculous moment that has to start your new life, that has to start your new soul journey. So basically, it means this Ace of Cups represents that miracle which you need in your life. Now, for some people, this has so much to do with their careers or what they want to do in life. It might have to do with their artistic talents or the artistic energies that they discover deep within themselves, and they want to just start creating. They want to start this life, this career. For them, it's going to represent those allies or people or sponsors or other artists, or who knows, an organization maybe, who has to connect with them and then ultimately give them this offer, give them this chance. This miraculous moment can take place in their lives, while for other people it's not so much about any activity, but rather about big love and romance, because that is what they have been missing in their lives all along. Maybe in their old lives, which was destroyed, they weren't loved, appreciated. No one actually reflected back at them their true self-worth, their true beauty, their true value, just how lovable and magical and beautiful they are. So for them, this Ace of Cups represents that dreamy, miraculous, big romantic love story that they have to experience and live through, because this is part of their soul mission. This is why they came into this existence, to live the full dimension of love, basically. For other people, it doesn't have to do so much with love and material things, but it has to do with spirituality and their spiritual path, where they need either allies, people who embody the same kind of spiritual principles and magic that they use. So they are desperately seeking, like for their soul families or for a soulmate, for a magical ally, another living human being who represents the same archetype as they do, and they need that powerful alliance to exist in their lives, because when this alliance is gonna be born, well, then that's when two powers are, and two intellects, two souls are gonna be united with one another, and the true work, the magical spiritual work, finally begin, and that will be the most important thing in their lives for the years to come. And this is exactly why it's so very important not to have specific expectations, because the world is full of toxic people, the world is full of toxic narcissists, people who might not even be bad intended, but their ignorance and their twisted egos just makes them totally inappropriate. It would be just a waste of your energy to feed those people. So the universe is making 100% sure that you cannot attract such a person in your life, because when you embody your purity, when you embody like unconditional love, your highest spiritual principles, well, then you cannot judge. You cannot see the filth where it actually is, because your highest frequency is blinding you, and it's perfectly okay this way as long as you trust the universe to do this for you. And that's why you need to eliminate your expectations and the way you desire or you planned things to unfold in your future. So basically, when you learn to fully trust the universe, that is when the Ace of Cups, the card of miracles, the gift of love, the gift of emotional superiority, is going to be handed to you by the universe. And for some people, it's gonna be actually at the moment of the full moon, while for others, it can take a little bit of time for everything to align and just come together perfectly, especially if it's love you're looking for, because that doesn't just depend on you. The other person, your destined lover, has to also do their inner work and be their very best version. Well, thank you so much for listening. Wish everyone a very magical and blessed full moon. May the highest of powers, especially that very powerful Pluto, give you the strength to transform your life into whatever you desire. Thank you for listening. Thank you for all your support. Bye for now.